Hi, everyone. It is Tuesday, February 3rd. Welcome to the House Democratic Caucus. My name is Lori Fulton. I represent the city of Essex Junction. A couple of reminders before we get to time for members to have announcements or requests, and then we'll go into a couple of bill reviews. So just a reminder that on February 19th at 10:30, we're having the joint assembly to elect two Vermont State College trustees, Vermont State University trustees, and how do I say it? Adjutant General, thank you. Notice I look right at you, Shay. And we do anticipate the process taking about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So just be prepared for that on February 18th. And then on February 12th at 5 p.m. is our speaker soiree at the Vermont Fine Arts College. And you should all have an email blast from Liam O'Sullivan on how to buy tickets. And we look forward to seeing everyone there. All right, does anyone have any member announcements or requests for sign-ons? Sorry, Karen.
Just a quick announcement, tomorrow, Wednesday, Farmers Night series continues. I think I've been to all, maybe both of them so far this year, and highly recommend folks come out. It's going to be a little different tomorrow. It's the title is Stories from the Woods. It's a curated story hour. It's sponsored, at least in part, by the Departments of Forest, Parks, and Recreation. And I will say that with my eyes and the type on this is a little hard to read anymore. To come out. I think it starts at 7:30.
Thanks, Stephen. Anyone else? Bill sign-ons, announcements, anything? Okay, great. So we have 4, potentially 5 items we're talking about today. So we are going to start with Representative Olson on H639. Is that the one? Which is an act relating to genetic data privacy. On up. Okay.
So thanks, Representative Herb Olson, Starksboro. The Commerce Committee is working on H639. I got the number right. Introduced by Representative Shai and others. It's about privacy for our genetic data. It sort of hit national consciousness, I think, last year in particular, with the hack of the data, genetic data, that was being held and sometimes transferred by a genetic testing company. We're trying to deal with not only security issues that in terms of hacking and things like that, but also the potential for transferring, selling, misusing some of this data in ways that, frankly, I don't think anyone personally intended at all. So the bill is trying to do a few things. The bill is introduced would require express consumer consent, which I think is very important in terms of the collection, storage of data for the use beyond for data use of the data beyond genetic testing, transfer, and a simple process simply to revoke consent. So it's all about the consent of the consumer in terms of the use of that data. This bill would set reasonable practices for securing the data, prohibit discrimination, and this type of legislation, similar to a lot of other privacy data bills we've passed and are considering, would be enforced in the same manner as a consumer protection statute, as any other consumer protection statute. That's about it for now.
Any questions?
I kind of missed it. When is it coming to the floor, or is it just being?
We're still working on it. We've been urged to start moving.
Any questions, comments about the bill? Great, thank you, Representative Wilson. We're going to stick with commerce and do H512, an act relating to the regulation of the event ticketing market with Representative Duke.
Hi, everybody. I'm Representative Abby Duke from Burlington. So, H 512, act relating to the regulation of event ticketing marketing. So first I'm going to identify what the problem is that we're trying to solve, and then talk a bit about what the bill is trying to do to solve it. The problem is a proliferation of ticket resellers who are using deceptive marketing practices, including speculatively buying tickets, or not buying, speculatively offering tickets for sale and then buying them from the venue after the fact. Also, well, actually, what everybody could do is, when you have a minute, Google a show at the Flynn that is coming up, and you will see all kinds of sites come up that make it look like you're buying a ticket from the Flynn. Everybody, people are nodding their heads, so they've seen this. So the harm that it's causing is, number one, to the consumer. They're overpaying for tickets. They are not buying tickets because they think that they're very expensive. They're not ending up at the venue site to buy the tickets themselves. They're also sometimes buying tickets that don't really exist and showing up at will call at a venue to get their ticket, and their ticket doesn't exist. Significant harm to the venues is happening because, for example, the Flynn estimates they spend more than $50,000 a year on trying to avoid fraud. Also, the brand of the Flynn and the customer expectations are damaged because people think it's much more expensive than it is, or you know, so those are all the things that we're working to solve. So it's kind of the Wild West out there. We do want to protect the ability for people to resell their ticket. We're not saying, you know, if you buy a ticket, you can't use it. We want you to be able to resell it. So the bill right now would put a price cap of 110% of the total ticket price when you resell it. So you buy it with fees and taxes for $100, it couldn't be sold for more than $110. We're also banning deceptive URLs and improper use of intellectual property. So you couldn't use, for example, an artist's intellectual property or logo, or a venue's logo in the marketing of selling those tickets. You can obviously list it when you're selling the ticket. We would also prohibit speculative tickets. So that is when, if you're, you know, trying to run this business and you offer a ticket for sale, but you don't actually have the ticket you want to sell it and then go get the ticket and provide it. So we would ban that. We would also create a registration with the Secretary of State's office. So if you're a ticket reseller and you're going to resell more than 99 tickets in a year, then you need to register with the Secretary of State. So, and then, let's see, and then if you're selling more than 1,000 tickets in a year, you also need to have a security bond, a surety bond with the Secretary of State of $10,000, so that if there's a ticket that has to be refunded, the state knows that there's a bond there so that you can repay it. So that's the bill. That's the problem. That's what how we're trying to solve it. We're working on it this week. I think more this afternoon. Any questions? Yeah. Oh yeah, she'll do it. Okay.
Hi, Shane Myers, have you, you're still working on it, have you spoken with the Secretary of State's office about this, and how, do you have any idea how it would affect their, staff and budget for making this new registry? Keeping those
Yes, we have spoken to them, and they are on board with doing this. The registering with Secretary of State, they would be allowed to charge a fee that is not set in statute. The fee is intended to be high enough to cover their costs to do this registry. Also, they are not doing enforcement. So they are not doing enforcement. It would be the Attorney General that would do any enforcement. So they're really just holding the data. But that is in the statute that they would charge a fee that would cover their costs, and then it would also, any extra money would go towards marketing, basically letting the public know about event ticketing sales and how to make sure you're getting tickets from the right source.
Thanks, Abby. Christy Morris, Springfield. Would this bill affect nonprofits that are running in raffles? for sports tickets that haven't been printed yet?
Yeah, good question. So there is an exemption for that type of, I can look up the language, but there is an exemption for sort of nonprofits who are working with the venue to do, to raffle off or to buy sports tickets in bulk, for example. So
Thanks.
no.
So I would say for both of these bills, they're not yet voted on, so if you have any feedback you want to give the committee, please reach out, but I think it was on the,
Hopefully next week.
hopefully next week, so it's not this week, thank you very much. All right, next we're going to go to H626, an act relating to voyeurism and disclosure of sexually explicit images without consent. There we go.
Morning, everyone. Angela Arsenault, representative from Williston. So this bill, 626, can be thought of as our image-based abuse bill. I add image-based tech facilitated abuse because we're talking mainly about crimes, behaviors that are facilitated online or through the use of tech products, digital and online products. So I don't know how many folks heard over the summer about a case in Burlington involving two sisters who were filmed in a makeshift dressing room without their consent. And this happened in 2012. One was 19 and one was 17 at the time. They had no idea that they were being filmed. They were in a location that I will not name for a photo shoot, just very innocently going along with an invitation. Turned out that the person who invited them had set up a camera and recorded them. Years later, they learned through a friend that this video was available on at least one, probably multiple pornographic websites. When they found out, the statute of limitations had run out. So there was no criminal prosecution to be done. There was no criminal recourse. They did pursue a case in civil court. And actually the results of that case influenced this bill as well. So this bill starts out by extending the statute of limitations in cases of voyeurism resulting in, the non-consensual disclosure of images. We're extending that statute of limitations to 40 years instead of the current 3 years. This aligns with other statutes of limitation that we have for crimes such as childhood sexual abuse, things that horrific traumatic events that victims, survivors may not be ready to talk about for many years, and in this case, may not even discover for many years. So 40 years on that one. We also, as I mentioned, out of that civil case, Chief Justice Reiber and Justice Waples from the Vermont Supreme Court in the resulting opinion pretty much, hinted very strongly to the legislature that we should address the fact that proof of harm currently in Vermont statute doesn't include severe emotional harm or harm resulting from diagnoses that are rooted in trauma. It really currently you have to prove physical harm, and so we are changing this bill proposes to change that part of statute as well. And then we get to a second type of image-based tech facilitated abuse, which is called sexual extortion or sextortion. People may have heard about this. It's a crime that is tragically on the rise and disproportionately affecting young people, and recently, in recent years, disproportionately affecting young boys. So we heard really heartbreaking testimony from two families who have lost their young sons to suicide as a result of sextortion. The way it works typically is that someone, often in another continent, reaches out to a boy, mostly again, reaches out to a person via DMs, Instagram direct message. One case was Facebook Messenger, sometimes it's Snapchat, doesn't matter, it's social media. And that the person reaching out poses as a young girl, as a peer, and just strikes up a conversation very quickly. In the cases that we heard about, and in every case that I've read about, this happens in a matter of hours, sometimes as few as 6 hours, 4 hours. They are conversing back and forth through DMs. Eventually, the perpetrator asks for nude images or explicit images or video. And then as soon as those images or video are received, the person on the other end threatens to disclose those images. And the usual threat is, I've screenshotted all of your followers because, there is no privacy anymore in the online world. And so they can see who their followers are. They can tell through their social media accounts who their parents are, their girlfriends, their friends. A lot of these boys are young athletes. They target kids who have something to lose, usually, namely their reputation. And they use manipulation to really scare these young victims to a point where they feel they have absolutely no options. They believe their life is over. And in many cases, sadly, this ends in suicide. And so currently, there's a gap where we haven't criminalized the threat to disclose explicit images. It's already illegal to disclose them, but if you're just threatening, that's not yet a crime. And so H626 creates that crime and closes that gap. The vote out of committee was 10-0-1. And it's going to be on the floor tomorrow. And I'm going to be co-presenting with Representative Millay.
Any questions?
Rita. Oh, Sarita, do you want to the question you asked me earlier? I do want to mention Sarita asked a great question, and I want to ask me earlier. The AI generated images are covered already in our statute. We changed or expanded our revenge form statute in 2024. We added digitization. So yes, AI deepfakes would be covered. The key is, in this extortion language, we use the term identifiable person. So as long as if it's, someone's face, and even if it's not their nude body, it's still not okay.
Yes, Sarita Austin from Colchester, Rep. Austin, Colchester. My understanding of the incident with the sisters, that the statute of limitations didn't begin until the video was found. Okay, that's what I read. And I was just wondering if it's going to be when the incident occurred.
Great question. So we talked a lot about this originally in the bill as introduced. We had changed the statute of limitations to 6 years, but said that only you start counting when upon discovery of the video or images. Through testimony and conversation, we decided to just extend it much further and not tie it to a discovery point, because we did also hear testimony from attorneys and investigators that it can be hard to prove that date sometimes. So we wanted to reduce barriers and push the date out far enough to hopefully capture most cases.
Doug Bishop of Colchester, you referenced that the Supreme Court in their decision sort of hinted at a current failing, if you will, in what civil damages can include, and that this bill makes a change. Does this bill make a change just in connection with the voyeurism statute, or is it a broader category of damages in civil cases?
Right now, it's pretty narrow. We have a different bill to broaden it. But in this case, it's related to our voyeurism statutes.
Anyone else? John.
Sean Sweeney, representative from Shelburne and St. George. With this, if they found this person, how do you enforce it if it is somebody overseas?
Another excellent question, y'all. So the fact of the matter is, as we heard, many of the perpetrators of these crimes are far, far away. And in those cases, of course, federal jurisdiction. So the reason that having a state level statute is so important, though, is that these crimes are so common, they're happening so frequently that federal law enforcement cannot possibly keep up, and they're not likely to take up most cases. However, if you have a state level statute, that enables local law enforcement to pursue an investigation, pursue charges, and really what we heard, take the case as far as possible to hopefully then hand it off to federal agents.
Anyone else with questions? Great, thank you. So it will be on the floor tomorrow. Next is H5, an act relating to hearsay exception for a child under 16 years of age. Karen, I'll walk around. I'll be the questioner. There's not gonna be that job, but I don't think there's gonna be any questions. Maybe there will be. Someone has a question.
Good morning, everybody. Karen Dolan, representative from Essex Junction. Tomorrow, H5 will be on the floor. Just a heads up that the vote on it was 10-0-1. And H5 is a bill that extends Vermont's existing hearsay exception to include children who are 13 to 15 years of age when the child is imputed a victim of abuse or sexual assault. Under current law, this age-specific exception applies only to children aged 12 and under. One question that might come up is, what exactly is hearsay? And hearsay refers to a statement made outside the courtroom that is offered in court to prove the truth of what it asserts. And I'll say also it's timely that I went after Representative Arsenault and the bill that she'll be presenting, because it's clear that teens are a vulnerable population. And so what this bill does is expand protections for them to be able to allow hearsay statements in proceedings. And it changes that age from 12 to up to 16. And that is basically the goal of it. I can share that this section also reaffirms that the hearsay exception applies only in narrow and specified circumstances, including civil, criminal, and administrative proceedings in which the child is imputed a victim of sexual assault or aggravated sexual assault, lewd or lascivious conduct, incest, abuse, neglect, or exploitation, and cruelty to a child involving serious bodily injury. There's some other exceptions as well, but those are the main ones. So again, that was voted out of the committee on 10-0-1 vote. It's building off of a current exception that already exists. We're changing the age to again capture more youth who are vulnerable and making sure they have the protections that they need. And it'll be on the floor tomorrow.
Any questions? I do have one. Why only up to age 16?
Yes, that is a great question. And there is different perspectives on that. Some would say that we could go without an age cap at all, or it could be 18, 20, it could be all over the place. We are specifically sticking with 16 because some folks may remember we did we changed an exception, it was 2 years ago for doing depositions for youth, and we brought that up to 16. And so we're like, okay, this can be a point where we can at least bring this one up to align to that. I think there's further conversations to be had. Can we make these exceptions even further? Because there's a case that others are vulnerable and need protections as well. And it's balancing that with, the protections for the other side of the case as well.
Any questions? All right, if you have any questions before tomorrow, feel free to reach out to Angela and Karen. And last but not least, we have Rep. James, who is going to be talking about cell towers, and I apologize if there's an actual bill number.
There is.
I don't have it.
That's okay. I'll say it. Great. Thanks, everybody. I had a few little notes here. So my name's Representative Kathleen James, and I'm from Manchester. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about H527. It's a bill that our committee has been working on for weeks, and we've taken extensive testimony that you're certainly welcome to view. On our page, we have received an overwhelming number of public comments as well. So it's all there for the reading. So just a little bit of background. Since 2007, companies that want to build a telecom tower, which is most often a cell tower, have been able to use an alternative to Act 250 and municipal permitting. And that alternative process is administered by the PUC, the Public Utility Commission. It's nicknamed for the section of statute that set it out. So it's called 248A. And if you're a company that wants to put up a tower, you can either go through municipal permitting and Act 250, or you can put in your application to the PUC and go through the 248A process. It was set up in order to be basically a more expedited, streamlined, faster process for companies to put up cell towers. So when the legislature passed this bill in 2007, we baked in a 3-year sunset. So every 3 years, this comes back around to the legislature to reconsider, renew, extend, change, and this is that year. So that's why the issue is before us, because it's sunset. So now what? I'm glad you asked. So if we allow 248A to sunset, in other words, if we take no action, then basically the application portal closes. Nobody can put in any more 248A applications, and the whole process would revert to 250, Act 250 and municipal permitting. So that's, I will call that one side of the spectrum. At the other side of the spectrum, the PUC and the Department of Public Service and the cell companies appreciate and support Act 248A. They think it makes it easier to put up cell towers in places where Vermonters may want them. They would love for us to remove the sunset altogether and just have it become a permanent process that the legislature doesn't revisit. So in our testimony, we tried to be guided by balancing competing interests. I think everybody in this room understands that Vermonters want to get cell signal at their house. Okay, people want coverage. They want to be able to get a signal at their home. They want to be able to get a signal if they're out driving around. It's a public safety issue. It's an economic issue. So we want to be able to build towers in Vermont. At the same time, what we heard through testimony is that the 248A process appears to be extremely frustrating for concerned citizens and for municipalities to engage in. It doesn't feel transparent. It doesn't feel responsive. It's very confusing. It's very intimidating. And I think it's led to a lot of frustration that communities don't have a voice. I think to give a great example of what we heard, the town of Tinmouth, which I think everybody knows is not exactly a massive municipality, is trying to fight a tower that isn't even a cell tower. It's a two-way radio tower that would be used for B2B, like UPS drivers, right, communicating with each other. And they have had to rely on individual donations and GoFundMe to try to hire an attorney to push back on this tower that's being put in a place where they don't want it. So how to move forward? We have a bill, and you'll have to forgive me. This is the latest draft of our bill. It's changed significantly since we started. We're going to be walking through this today. Where I think the committee is heading is that we are going to we're going to consider extending the sunset another 3 years, like we seem to have done every 3 years. But we're going to ask the PUC to hold a minimum of 2 public workshops. These are a pretty transparent, open process. Anybody can watch or submit public comments. We have a list of stakeholders that must be invited to participate in these workshops, everything ranging from the cell providers to citizen advocacy groups to the Department of Public Service. And we're going to ask them to come back to us in December with recommendations, maybe suggested legislative language on how that 248A process could be improved in a broad number of ways that we hope would make it easier for citizens and towns to engage and have a voice. So I think we're going to vote on it this week. In fact, that is definitely the plan. But like I said, the walkthrough of this draft is today. And I feel like we're trying to find a good balance.
Great. Any questions? Karen.
Hey, hi, Charlie from the representing Woodstock, Riding at Plymouth. So I just have a couple of questions. One is, do you know how many towers have been authorized under 248A versus 250? Is that a data point that we know?
It's a data point that we took testimony on that I have in my notes. But I will tell you that the overwhelming number of applications go through 248A.
Okay.
So,
And how many towers have not been built because of the frustrations with 248A?
well, one thing we learned, which I didn't know, obviously, until we took testimony. So there are these 3 levels of 248A applications. And the vast majority of them, I don't want to guess on a number. I see some committee members here, 85%, 90% are classified as de minimis. And so in other words, they're not contested. It's swapping out equipment. So most of the applications sail through, they're not contested, and there's not a problem. Then we have these sort of mid-level applications that get a little bit more scrutiny, and then major applications, and those aren't the right words, which is usually to build a brand new tower. And that seems to be where almost all of the furor is resulting around. When a company comes in, they want to build a brand new tower. The complex 248A process starts, complex from citizens' view. And I don't have the numbers, but I can get them for you. We did take testimony in that. So, did I miss anything important, committee members, about that?
Great, thanks. I'll follow up with that.
Okay.
Bishop of Colchester. If we're hoping that the workshops and the report will identify some safeguards so that the public feels like they're being heard, is there any consideration to shortening sunsetting of this rather than waiting another 3 years? If we're going to have a report of possible solutions for public participation within a year, has there been talk of having a shorter sunset so we sort of put this to rest in the next legislative session as to whether we are going to continue to revisit this?
Yeah, I don't want to get out ahead of my committee on that. Right now, the draft bill shows another 3-year sunset, but we really haven't talked about that.
Any other questions?
David Jervy from Shaftesbury. Thanks for the overview. Does the bill only deal with tower construction, or does it also cover other kinds of permit applications that are under the 248A that the PUC deals with?
I think that it deals with telecommunications facilities. And we have taken testimony in the context of towers. Phone a friend?
Over here.
Oh, that's Scott. Give the mic to Scott.
Yes, it does include other equipment that would be installed, earth stirred for concrete pads or stuff like that, electrical equipment connections. So it does, 28 does cover all of that.
Great. Any other questions for Scott?
Ouch.
Sorry, this is from Gilbert, this may be a really hard question, but I'm wondering about, we're talking about cell service here primarily. And there are other ways of connecting to the internet, like the optic fiber that's going on. Are we setting up just a competition system here and we're getting engaged in that? Am I making sense? I'm not sure.
See a lot of raised eyebrows. Representative Campbell. I'm not a floor reporter, by the way. Representative Sibilia is going to be presenting still on the floor.
Well, 248A is around radio communications or mobile communications. And fiber is a different technology. It's a cable to fiber that needs to be wired to premises. It's a different technology. Fiber is considered sort of more future-proof in that updates can be made to both ends of the fiber, and you can still get higher speeds and higher density than we have today. But mobile is important for all the reasons that Chair has mentioned. And one point that I'll mention that's really been sticking in my head, which is that there are people who aren't going to be able to afford whatever, $50, $80, $100 a month for fiber when that becomes the default service. And they interact with the internet using cell phones. And if we don't have cell coverage, they don't have access. So they can't access various private services, and they can't access government services. So there's an equity issue in addition to economic issues.
Thanks, Kat. We are a team in House Energy and Digital Infrastructure, and I'm thankful for it.
Any other questions? Great.
All right, I think everything I said was accurate, and that I'm sure about, and I'm really happy to have my committee members here.
Thank you very much. That's everything for today. Please have a great week. Reach out.